Hey guys, I'm Tiffany. Welcome to the Book Skeptic. Today I'm sharing everything I read in April. The first book I read was Why Are You Like This? A collection of comics with a millennial take on marriage, adulthood, pet ownership, self-love, and self-care. I had a fun enough time with this book. It was pretty chill. It wasn't too special, but I had a pretty good time with it. And I have a few pages that I really liked, so I'll just put them right here. The next book I read was Forget Me Twice. When my local hospital calls to say, I'm sorry to tell you this, but your husband has been in an accident, I try to explain the basics to them. 1, I am not married anymore. Archie Dunmore is a thing in the past. 2, if there's a husband in the hospital, it's not mine. Except Archie is back, and he's been in an accident. One that has left him with amnesia. Yup, he believes we're still happily married. Oh joy. Too bad for me. The doctor believes it would be best for Archie to remember things on his own. He needs familiar surroundings to heal. No big shocks. No emotional trauma. Which means I can't tell him the truth. Archie bursts back into my life with all the warmth and joy of a freshly married man. Confident that I'm the love of his life, and determined to fix the rift between us. Except how do I tell him that he walked out on me? Especially when Archie is desperately trying to remember what I've worked so hard to forget. What's a girl to do with an amnesiac ex-husband at her breakfast table? I had a really good time with this book. I wouldn't say this is my favorite romance book I've read, but I had a pretty good time with it. I wasn't the biggest fan with the small town aspect of it, but for the most part, I had a good time with it. One of the things I really did appreciate about Forget Me Twice was the fact that it was a closed-door romance. Nothing, you didn't have to deal with that. That's definitely something I appreciate, because most of the adult romances, they're not that nice to just give you the clean and wholesome, so I really appreciate that. The next book I read was Disturbing His Peace. She's got probable cause to make her move. Danica Silva can't stand Lieutenant Greer Burns. Her roommate's older brother may be sexy as hell, but he's also a cold, unfeeling robot. She just wants to graduate and forget about her scowling superior. But when a dangerous mistake lands Danica on probation, under Greer's watch, she's forced to interact with the big hulking jerk. Call him daily to check in? Done. Ride shotgun in his cruiser every night? Done. Try not to climb into his giant muscular lap and kiss him? Greer doesn't let anything or anyone distract him from the job. Except lately, all he can think about is Danica. He's wanted the beautiful, cocky recruit since the moment he saw her. But she's reckless and unpredictable, and Greer is painfully aware of what can happen when an officer doesn't follow the rules. Probation seems like a good idea. But now Danica's scent is in his car and he's replayed her voicemails 20 times. Man, he's a goner. Danica's melting Greer's stone-cold exterior one ride along at a time. Being together could have serious consequences, but breaking a few rules never hurt anybody, right? This was a decent book. I had a fairly good time with it. And the last book I completely read through was Marriage for One. Jack and I, we did everything backward. The day he lured me into his office, which was also the first day we met, he proposed. You'd think a guy who looked like him, a bit cold maybe, but still striking and very unattainable, would only ask the love of his life to marry him, right? You'd think he must be madly in love. Nope, it was me he asked, a complete stranger who had never even heard of him. A stranger who had been dumped by her fiancé only weeks before. You'd think I'd laugh in his face, call him insane. A few other names, then walk away as quickly as possible. Well, I did all those things except the walking away part. It took him only minutes to talk me into a business deal. Marriage. And only days rest to officially tie the knot. Happiest day of my life. Magical. Pop the champagne. Not. It was the worst day. Jack Hawthorne was nothing like I'd imagined for myself. I blamed him for my lapse in judgment. I blamed his eyes, the ocean blue eyes that looked straight into mine unapologetically, and that frown on his face I had no idea I would become so fascinated with in time. It wasn't long after he said I was the biggest mistake of his life that things started to change. No, he still didn't talk much, but anyone can string a few words together. His actions spoke the loudest to me, and day after day my heart started to get a mind of its own. 1 second he was no one, the next he became everything. 1 second he was unattainable, the next he seemed to be completely mine. 1 second I thought we were in love, the next it was nothing but a lie. After all, I was Rose and he was Jack. We were doomed from the very beginning with those names. Did you expect anything else? So I read this book because there was a recommendations board on Twitter and it was like, okay, go through this and it'll pick a trope for you. And it ended up picking Marriage of Convenience, and this is a popular book that I've heard of and a lot of people have hyped up about, so I was like, okay, I'll give this a try. This book was so long, dragging, boring, but it still had some good parts. The problem is, this book was over 500 pages. You do not need a romance or contemporary book to be that long, and it really doesn't need to be either. Also, there were so many times I was trying to figure out what was going to happen at the end. Like, there's like this whole medical condition that the girl is under, and I'm like, well, the author did have Rose and Jack be their names. Is she gonna die or something? There were like a lot of things where it's like just trying to figure out what the end goal is, and some things that like you kind of get the gist early on, but you don't know the full story until later. But this main guy, Jack Hawthorne, is definitely not my style of person, of a love interest. Like, he's so cold, and yes, he does love her eventually and everything, but no, I just don't appreciate how nothing he was. He was just so cold and aloof and all that sort of thing, and it's just, come on. Like, if it's a fictional book, you can't have more of a good time. Like, couldn't he soften up a little bit more than what he did? But whatever the case, this was interesting to read, a very popular book. I don't get what the hype was all about, but I was pretty proud of myself still to get through a book as big as this. It's definitely been some years since then, and I'll put in a clip of what this book really describes for me.
You are my Everest.
And I did have one DNF, which is Anatomy of a Meet Cute. Sparks fly when an OBGYN butts heads with the doctor at her new hospital in this delightfully charming romance about bad timing, good friends, and fresh starts. The last thing I ever expected was to insult a colleague before I even started a new job. But here I am, already on thin ice after I mistook a fellow doctor for a patient on a bad drug trip. Oops. No matter how handsome or infuriatingly aloof he is, Grant Gow isn't going to spoil my fresh start. Instead, I'm going to keep myself maybe too busy with my roommate's work and passion, starting a new program to improve pregnancy care in the community. But getting the hospital bigwigs on board with my idea is proving to be more difficult than I anticipated, and I may be forced to swallow my pride and ask Grant for help. But will working with Grant bring us closer, or will I be crushed under my ever-growing list of responsibilities? So this book, I don't feel I gave a full chance for it. I wasn't in the mood for it when I was trying to read it. And I will say, there was an audiobook I also had with the ebook, and oh my gosh, sometimes the narrator, she just, I couldn't deal with it. It was just like, it was more of a detriment to the book than a plus for me. I was just getting sick of it, so I just had to set it aside. And I'm also going to be talking about my May TBR. I don't have any concrete plans, but I do plan on reading more with my Kindle Unlimited shelf. And also, I do plan on reading more challenging books. Like, I've been planning on reading more mystery, suspense, thriller type books, so maybe I will be doing that this month. And that is everything I read or attempted to read in the month of April. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, be sure to give this video a big thumbs up, comment below, and if you liked this video and would like to see more bookish content, be sure to hit that subscribe button. See you guys next time!